Hello everybody, bit of a different video for you today, because over the last few months we've been asked several times at the archive what our oldest photos are, and well, the archive is 40 years old this year, so I thought it was about time to dig out our oldest photos, and we've done some then and now photos for you to go along with it. Plus, I want to talk about a little project that we're trying to do, and you might be able to help. So, without further ado, let's start on the first one, which is 1848. That is 176 years ago. And yeah, the photo does look a little bit boring, but there is a story behind this which is interesting. This is the Pink Tower in Newcastle, which was part of the town walls. Now in the late 1840s, much of these walls were demolished to make way for the central station, and it seems like a photographer went around town and took some photos to document this. These are the only ones that we have, but there may well be more out there, and the Holy Grail photo would be a picture before the central station was built, but we'll come back to that in a minute. This is the same location about 40 years later, and then we can move on another 70 years and you might start to recognise where this is. It's on Neville Street, just across the road from where the central station is today. This is cool, right? The way that we can jump through time, almost like a Google Street View of the past. And that is the project that we're trying to do. Now this is 1848 again, almost certainly taken by the same photographer. It's another part of the town wall, but you probably won't recognise this part of it, because essentially it isn't there anymore. It's in the grounds of St Andrew's Church, as you can see, and since the photo was taken, the area has been substantially built up, but this part of the wall does sort of still remain. It's built into the back of these more modern buildings. Now this 1848 picture is the Crow's Nest pub, and we know it's from about 1848 because you can just make out the landlord's name above the door, and it's documented when the pub went bust, which was in 1850. There is still a pub in the same location now on Percy Street, although the crow's nests and the tree are long gone. Now this one is probably 1848, but it could be as late as 1852. It's St John's Church at the bottom of Westgate Road. Before Granger Street was built, to the left, you can see that there's just a small archway that goes up a lane called St John's. The location today, as you can see, is far more built up. So, because it's our 40th birthday, we've made a Patreon page where we hope you can help, and it's linked down below with more details on this project. But on to the next picture. Now this is another 1848 to 1852 picture, and it's just a little bit further down the road than the previous one. And if we come into the modern day, you can see it's where the Stevenson Monument now stands. The street layout looks the same, but almost all the buildings are different. This street layout could well have been like this since Roman times, as it follows the course of the wall. This, of course, is the Black Gate, part of Newcastle's castle. Here you can see that it still has shops attached to it, and originally they were on both sides, with just a small alleyway in between. With our project at the archive, we want you to be able to wander around all of town like this, glitching between time periods as you see fit. Now we're down on the quayside, about 1852. We of course know this is before 1854, because that was when the giant explosion happened, and we have a separate video on that. Here's a large panoramic view before the explosion took place, and then the explosion happened. As you can see, it was right on the site of the Time Bridge. The devastation and damage was huge. It's probably why we have these 1854 photos. A major disaster certainly brought out the photographers then, just as it would now. Many of these are from the Henry Brady book that you can view at the Central Library. He and his family were pioneering photographers and took photographs of all their travels around Europe, because I assume that they were ultra wealthy. And their fortune is in our favour because we have these fantastic photos of the disaster. If you want to know more about it and what happened, check our other video on it after you've watched this one. Now we're heading down to Jarrow in St Paul's Monastery. This 1855 photo is also by Henry Brady, and as you can see, It looks very much the same today. While we're down in that neck of the woods, which is technically a little bit outside of the archives area, couldn't resist having this photo of Tynemouth. And it's fantastic because not only is it taken before the pier was built, you can also see the original lighthouse. If you look very carefully, there it is, up in the peninsula. It has, of course, since been replaced by a much more modern setup. If you're enjoying these, it's worth knowing that if you give us just £3 a month, every Christmas we'll send you a book of our finest discoveries of the year. But anyway, this is the windmill that used to be on Mill Lane up in Arthur's Hill. Nothing remains of it now, but the street name. Well, now we go back to the castle. We have a lot of photos of the castle from the 1850s, and this is one of my favourite ones. It's actually available as a free postcard with a now photo on the back at the library. We have many postcards available just like this. You can just come in, take them and leave. They are completely free thanks to donations made by lovely people like you. There are also a surprising number of free historical books at the library. But anyway, these are some photos of Jesmond Dean that we've not been able to match up with some now photos. These are also from Henry Brady's collection. Perhaps if you recognise where they are, you could send us some now photos and we'll put them on the website. This is Anne Matthewson's pub in Ryton and the Holy Cross Church in the background. This again is a little bit outside of our area, so I'm not sure if this building is still there. But if you are in Ryton or you know the area, maybe you can help us with a now photo. So now it's 1859 and Central Station is now firmly built over those old town walls. Sadly, we don't have any photos before the station was built, but we do have these lovely old photos showing the progress and the growth of the station itself. Now, if we just turn right around from where we're standing, we can see the unveiling of the Stevenson Monument in 1862. And if you look carefully, you can see that health and safety didn't mean anything back then because there's an awful lot of people on the roofs of the surrounding buildings trying to get a look at the unveiling. And now that the hideous Westgate House has gone, this area is once again a lovely looking part of town. And speaking of lovely parts of town, it's time to go to the big market in 1862, just as the new town hall had been built, but remnants of old Newcastle remain in front of it, as you can see. Now the town hall, considered by many to be a much prettier building than what stands there today, apparently never really worked as a town hall, and that's why it was demolished. Sadly, protests to keep the space open so that we'd have an open view of the cathedral were not successful, and, well, we're left with this. Okay, now back down to the quayside. Starting around 1862, what's interesting about these photos is that you can see the old time bridge, and in this panoramic photo from Billy Embleton shows the site of the explosion. You can still see what appears to be remnants of the building on the ground. But, of course, the old bridge had to go because boats couldn't get up the river. So, it was demolished, and for a short while replaced by this temporary bridge while they were building the swing bridge alongside it. And while it doesn't seem to work anymore, it is still there today. And finally, we'll end on Gray's Monument because you all know it, and we've got lots of lovely old photographs of it, including this one from the 1860s. The buildings around the monument have changed very much, yet it's still very recognisable. It was at one point a roundabout, but the council came to their senses and they are trying once again to close off Blackett Street to cars. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and you like the idea of our project, and I really hope some of you will come and Patreon us just a tiny bit of money so that we can continue doing what we do love doing. Remember that we're all volunteers at the archive. And somehow, incredibly, it's been kept going for 40 years. Many of the images you see on Facebook and other image-sharing websites came from the last 40 years of work. And it would be amazing if you would help it go on for another 40 years. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.